Hello and welcome to another Magic Duels gameplay. Today we're taking another look at our Reanimator deck, which got a nice new addition with Kaladesh, which is Cathartic Reunion, which for 2 mana lets us discard 2 cards and then draw 3 cards, which is great for a Reanimator deck since it gives us a discard outlet and digs us deeper towards the cards we need. So of course the goal of a Reanimator deck is to discard large expensive creatures and then get them back from the graveyard with cards like Necromantic Summons and Rise from the Grave. So let's take a look at the entire deck here, starting out with Insolent Neonate, which is a nice cheap discard outlet. We can discard a card, sacrifice a Neonate and then draw a card, and we also get a 1/1 Menace that can attack and block. We get Sinister Concoction, which is a removal spell and a discard outlet all in one. Also mills a card from the top of our deck, so can randomly mill a big creature. We've got a Lightning Axe, which is also a removal spell that can let us discard a card, or we can pay 5 generic mana, so most of the time we'll be discarding a card as an additional cost to deal 5 damage at instant speed to a creature. We've got Jace Vryn's Prodigy, which is excellent in this deck, as it's a draw and discard effect that then transforms into Telepath Unbound that can flashback perhaps our reanimation spell from the graveyard. Then of course Cathartic Reunion. We've got Prized Amalgam, which is kind of a value creature that we can discard and then it'll come back for free from the graveyard, so we get a nice 3/3 in addition. We get Oath of Jace, which is similar to Cathartic Reunion. The major difference is that we get to draw before we have to discard, so we get a bit more card selection. We've got our sweepers here in Radiant Flames and Languish, since we are weak to aggressive strategies otherwise. And then our reanimation spells, and then the major difference here is that Necromantic Summons can put 2+1/+1 counter on the creature, so it's usually going to be a lot better than Rise from the Grave, since it's pretty trivial in this deck to enable spell mastery. And then we get to some of our reanimation targets. Noxious Gearhulk is kind of in between, since we can actually just cast him on turn 6 as a nice 5/4 menace that kills a creature and gains us some life. But we could also reanimate him from the graveyard if we have to. But some better targets are targets that can't be easily killed, and while Greenwarden doesn't really apply here as a creature that is difficult to kill, at least it gets us some value right away. So when he enters the battlefield we can return a reanimation spell from the graveyard usually when he dies as well, and that way we can bridge the gap towards our actual finishers, which are going to be Gaea's Revenge, which is very hard to kill, 8/5 haste, can't be the target of non-green spells or abilities from non-green sources, so it's very similar to Hexproof in most cases. And then Plated Crusher, which is 7/6 trample Hexproof, so actual Hexproof and trample, so he can't be chum blocked. We've got Omnath with a landfall, so we usually want to reanimate him when we can also play a land in the same turn to trigger landfall, so we get a nice 5/5 elemental token. Also the ability of Omnath is very relevant, dealing 3 damage whenever an elemental dies to a creature or player. And note that Gaea's Revenge as well as Greenwarden are elementals, so that could come up. And then finally we've got Ulamog, the Ceaseless Hunger, which is a nice 10/10 indestructible that exiles the top 20 cards of the opponent's library when he attacks. We don't get the cast trigger unfortunately when we reanimate Ulamog, but it's still a great creature to reanimate. Then our mana base, 3 islands, 4 swamps for Languish, 3 mountains, 2 Smoldering Marsh, 2 Sunken Hollow, 2 Drowned Catacomb, 2 Sulfur Falls, 2 Dragonskull Summit, and then 4 Evolving Wilds, which go great with the Omnath of course. We're not playing any creature lands in this deck since we don't really need to rely on them to deal the final points of damage, since once we reanimate a creature that's usually good enough. So that's the deck. Now let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which is an easy mulligan. We're on a play. Still a very risky hand if we don't hit a land for Jace. So I think we have to mulligan, as much as it pains me. Alright, this is a keep. And we can lead with Smoldering Marsh, but I think we lead with Evolving Wilds, getting an island. Although if we lead with Smoldering Marsh tapped, any basic land will let us cast Reunion on turn 2. So maybe we do lead with the tapped Smoldering Marsh here, since I do want to get an island with Evolving Wilds. So let's say if we draw a swamp, we can play Reunion, while if we played Evolving Wilds getting an island and draw into a swamp, then we can't play Reunion. Opponent gets a forest. Reunion is a bit more painful to cast when you mulligan. Alright, there's a swamp. So what do we discard is a question. We don't know if we are gonna need a Radiant Flames quite yet. So we could actually play Swamp, discard Revenge plus Evolving Wilds, which I don't hate, since if it turns out our opponent isn't an aggressive creature deck, we can still discard Radiant Flames next turn, but we don't know for sure. And we drew an island, which is good. So next turn we can discard Greenwarden and something else to the second Reunion. Sylvan Advocate, alright. It's not a huge problem quite yet. And we found a land, so I kind of want to Reunion, discarding Greenwarden and Lightning Axe, keeping the Radiant Flames, since Radiant Flames can deal with the Advocate and maybe whatever our opponent plays. And we do want to keep the lands here. So yeah, let's discard these two. Hope to find a reanimation spell here. Found a Jace instead, which is not quite what we need, but it's a start. Can still take a hit here from the Advocate. Next turn probably play Jace. And if we can transform Jace, we could also flash back a Cathartic Reunion from the graveyard, although then we're not casting a reanimation spell on turn 5. So Oath of Gideon now. His opponent is gonna get 2 tokens. So Radiant Flames looking decent. Found a land. So we could Radiant Flames here, but then we're not really progressing our plan. So I think we have to play Jace. And take another hit from the Advocate. We could get punished if our opponent has a ram spell like Explosive Vegetation, putting extra lands into play and putting the Advocate out of reach of Radiant Flames, but I think that's a risk we have to take. And it's not like Advocate is gonna beat something like Gaea's Revenge or a Greenwarden, if we can get some counters on it. So yeah, let's prevent the damage. Take 3. Tireless Tracker, alright, so Radiant Flames looking very good here. And a Shambling Vent for the opponent to get a clue from the tracker. Alright, still no reanimation spell, but we're flipping Jace for sure here. Let's discard a Crusher. I guess we can flash back the Reunion first. Since we have plenty of cards, we don't mind discarding. Like this Crusher and the Swamp. Alright, there's Necromantic Summons, perfect. And now let's sweep the board and start over. And then next turn we can choose which creature we want to bring back with 2+1/+1 counters. Could be Gaea's Revenge to hit for 10, since that's a 2-turn clock. Could be Greenwarden to get a bit more value out of our Necromantic Summons. Alright, Prized Amalgam, a bit late, would have liked to discard that one. So I think we go with the Greenwarden here over Gaea's Revenge, although Gaea's Revenge being a 2-turn clock is pretty great. The downside is that our opponent could have a number of cards that can still deal with Gaea's Revenge, including sweepers, cards like Blessed Alliance, cards like Oath of Liliana. So I'm not too comfortable just going for the Gaea's Revenge here. I think we can afford to get the Greenwarden here, get a bit more value, and get our summons back into our hand. Yep, and then we could play Evolving Wilds to get a tap land out of the way, or we could save it in case we want to reanimate something like a Omnath, but given that we haven't found him yet, might as well sacrifice the Evolving Wilds here to get a basic out of our deck. And then shrink down Gisela here, which most likely attacks Jace next turn, but who knows. So we're in a decent spot here, I would say, but that could change quickly. If our opponent can, for example, exile the Greenwarden, that would not be great for us, since then we don't get any value if our opponent has an Anguished Unmaking, for example. So Gisela is going to attack Jace. It's gonna be Nixilis Reignited, which can kill our Greenwarden here. Yep. Also comes into play with an additional loyalty, which is important from the Oath of Gideon. So I'm tempted to get back Cathartic Reunion here, since that lets us discard the Amalgam, digs us a bit deeper. But it would be exiling the Greenwarden, but I think that's still okay, since the Reunion will probably find us another reanimation spell. Noxious Gearhulk, eh? I still think we go with Reunion, then use the summons on probably Gaea's Revenge, and then take down Nixilis. Sounds like a plan. So Reunion, discarding Amalgam and a land. Draw a bunch of cards, play Smoldering Marsh, cast Summons on Gaea's Revenge. Opponent doesn't have mana for Blessed Alliance here. And since it's not a 2-turn clock anymore, since our opponent gained a bunch of life, I think it's safer to take out Nixilis. Now we get back the Amalgam, so we have protection from something like a Oath of Liliana, making us sacrifice a creature. Gisela will be able to take down Jace, but then the Gearhulk will take down Gisela. So if our opponent has a sweeper, I guess that's annoying. We still have the Neonate to try and find another reanimation spell. We went through half of our deck, basically, and only found 1 copy. Still have 5 copies left somewhere. Alright, opponent's gonna beat down here with a Shambling Vent. They might not have anything better to do. Or maybe they're setting up a sweeper effect. That could also be the case, where they don't want to commit additional creatures to the board, since they're gonna sweep the board anyways. But then they could have just killed Jace and swept the board right now, I guess. Opponent up to 26. They can sacrifice a clue here, Blast Alliance doesn't do anything if we also attack with the Prized Amalgam. So I think we start by attacking. The only question here is if we want to commit to playing the Gearhulk to kill Gisela, or if we want to play around a potential sweeper effect. But the problem is that it's difficult to race a 4-powered lifelinking flyer, so we might just have to kill Gisela here. So let's attack first and see what happens. Opponent takes 13 down to 13. If the attack is back for 6 and gains 6, we go to 7, they go up to 19. So that's not a race that we're really winning for sure. So I think just playing the Gearhulk is probably safer here. Kill Gisela. And gain 3 life. And now we could play the Neonate, but I think we can keep that one in hand for now, since we have plenty of mana to work with. Thin out our deck a bit. Alright. Looks like the opponent does not have a sweeper. Still gonna keep the Neonate in hand for now, since the 1 additional damage is probably not gonna matter. Well, never mind, there's a planar outburst, so I'm not sure why the opponent left, maybe they just disconnected. And drawing lands is not great, but now we do get to play the Neonate, can block a creature and sacrifice the Neonate. And we really want to find a reanimation spell. Probably shouldn't have played out a land here, since we want to keep lands in hand for cards like Cathartic Reunion. Smuggler's Copter. We have lightning axes and concoctions to deal with cards like Smuggler's Copter at instant speed. Westville Abbey. Opponent's gonna animate the vent and attack for 6. So we could block the vent and sacrifice the Neonate to prevent our opponent gaining 2 life. But I think we would rather prevent 4 damage. Let's try and find something good here. Alright, Rise from the Grave, that qualifies. Opponent up to 15. Not a land. So, could get back the Gearhulk, kill the 4/4, get back Amalgam, which does sound appealing. Opponent only has 1 card left, and they do have this Rogue's Passage, so otherwise they might be able to race us. Could get back a Plated Crusher or a Gaea's Revenge, although a Revenge is dangerous if our opponent does have Blessed Alliance in hand. So I think we actually still go with the Gearhulk here, even though it's the only creature that doesn't have any sort of protection built in. And get rid of the 4/4. Gain 4 life and get an Amalgam back. Keep lands in hand. Still have some good draws left in our deck. Another Cathartic Reunion or Oath of Jace would be great. Languish, not quite as good. Think we do attack with both here. Alright, Anguish the Making. It's gonna exile the Gearhulk, that's unfortunate. Do we want to attack for 3 here? Think we do. Well, there's a Blast Alliance. At least got rid of it. So the opponent did have all the answers. And now we're stuck with the Languish that doesn't hit the Shambling Vent or the Copter. Opponent's gonna make a token with Westville Abbey to crew the Copter, that's nice. And hit us for 3, which is not very nice. Opponent discards Declaration in Stone, alright. And Prized Amalgam, think we just play out the Amalgam for now. Now a Gideon. Alright, not sure how we're gonna beat that one. Unless we draw a reanimation spell right now. Opponent somehow did not attack with the Copter, even though they could have. Alright, Oath of Jace is the kind of card we were looking for, but it does have to find us something good. The AI crewing the Copter for no good reason. Alright, Necromantic Summons, Reunion, so all good cards here. I think I like attacking Gideon with our Amalgam. Opponent chumps. And I think we Necromantic Summons the Plated Crusher here. And we'll get back the Prized Amalgam. And the Crusher should be able to kill Gideon with an attack. Also blocks Gideon. And then Languish can potentially sweep up some cards. Opponent keeps top decking great cards here. Now Greenwarden. It's gonna get back Gisela. Luckily still dies to a Languish. Opponent makes a token. Alright, we can Reunion, discarding Ulamog and a land. Alright, now we're talking. So given that we drew another summons, what do we do? I think Ulamog is probably the better one to get back. Although our opponent could get back Declaration or Anguished Unmaking if the Greenwarden dies. I think we start by attacking Gideon here. Opponent crewing the Copter again. They could double block, but that's fine. Opponent does double block. Draw and discard with the Copter. And what do they get back? Planar Outburst. Alright, so we're pretty safe to get back Ulamog at this point. And I think we use Rise from the Grave over the summon, since Ulamog is probably going to win the game with this ability rather than with actual damage. So might as well save the summons for a creature where the 2 counters matter. So let's Rise from the Grave Ulamog. And say go. Hope our opponent hasn't found another way to exile Ulamog. That would be annoying. But they went through Anguished and Declaration already. Gisela is fine. Another Shambling Vent. Well, and there's an Anguished Unmaking. The AI is not making it easy, to say the least. Attacks with Gideon. Might as well block, since we're probably casting a Languish next turn anyways. Alright, so we can go Languish plus Necromantic Summons. And I think we do that right now and get back a Gaea's Revenge, take out Gideon. I think just taking out Gideon is probably safer here. Since your opponent can gain life with the Shambling Vents. Alright, keep the land in hand for the reunion, get back to Amalgams. And hope that we finally got there. It's been a very long game. Planar Outburst, right? Our opponent still had that one in hand, kind of forgot about that one. That they got back with the Greenwarden. But I think that still doesn't really change our play. Right, reunion, discarding these two. And we can arise from the grave. Gaea's Revenge. Attack our opponent for 8. And then we can use Lightning Axe on the land, discarding Radiant Flames. But I think we want to wait on it in case our opponent maybe animates Shambling Vent or does something else. Alright, is our opponent finally out of answers? Nissa, Voice of Zendikar. Alright, Radiant Flames for 1 can take care of the token. Opponent still has a Shambling Vent that they can activate. I think we keep Lightning Axe, since we can pay full retail. So 3, 4, 5 and still cast Radiant Flames for 1. So we should get there here. Alright, this is fine. And then a Lightning Axe. The plains. Attack our opponent with everyone. And hope that their last card isn't relevant. Alright, we got there. On to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opener, which looks pretty good. Bit of a slow start with our lands here. Since we need to get a mountain, this comes into play tapped. But still looks fine. And drawing a land could help. Alright, Sunken Hollow. So if we play this, then we still can't play Reunion on 2 unless we find a mountain. So I think we still go with the Evolving Wilds to get a mountain, then any basic land that comes into play untapped lets us play Reunion on 2. And if not, we just play the Sunken Hollow turn 2. The downside is that if we play the Hollow now, we could still play the Concoction next turn, but I don't think that's a very big deal. I think the upside of being able to cast a Reunion more likely is worth not playing the Concoction. Turn 2, Arrow Falkenrath. Opponent on a Vampire deck, or a Madness deck, or both. Do have a removal spell in Concoction. Now a Lightning Axe is a decent addition. So let's say go. Next turn we could both Lightning Axe and play and sacrifice Concoction, so we do have some removal options available. Of course we have to discard a card every time, but the first one's pretty free with Omnath in hand. Alright, opponent's madnessing out a creature here. transforms the air. And I think we just Lightning Axe the Bloodhall Priest here, discarding Omnath. Can take a look at that. And then take some damage from the air. And I think here we just Cathartic Reunion. Question is what we discard. Could just be another Reunion. And a land, although I do want to keep lands in hand actually. Could also just play out the Concoction. So kind of a tricky spot. Let's discard Marsh. And the other Reunion. I think we need to keep the Concoction in hand. Alright, plenty of lands. And Evolving Wilds goes nicely with Omnath, if we wait long enough. Land number 4 for the opponent. Just an attack for 3. Scrap Heap Scrounger. A recursive threat. Found another Reunion. So we could cast this one, discarding the Concoction. And perhaps a land. But I don't want to miss on turn 5 land drop. I think we go for it and then discard the Evolving Wilds. Even though it goes nicely with Omnath, I want to be reanimating on turn 5. And we can use a Concoction to discard whatever big creature we draw into here. Did not draw into any big creatures, unfortunately. But Necromantic Summons is not bad. So even if our opponent has removal for Omnath, we can get it back a second time. Opponent attacks with both. I think we use a Concoction on the air here. Question is, what do we discard? Think a land. We milled a Languish. Take 3 down to 10. Alms of the Vein is gonna drain us for 3 here. And a land. Alright, so now the question is, do we want to use Necromantic Summons or Rise from the Grave? Summons plays around a double burn spell or a Lightning Axe, which your opponent could easily have here, since they are a Madness deck. While if we play Rise first, we play around a Murder type removal spell better. I think I want to go with these summons though. And get back Omnath. Even if they kill Omnath, we get to kill the Scrounger. And now Lightning Axe doesn't kill Omnath. Instead they have an unlicensed disintegration, which is what we were worried about, but still get to kill the Scrounger. Opponent can get it back, but it'll cost them 2 mana. And now we can Rise. Still think Omnath is the better choice here. And play land to get a token. And hopefully this is good enough. And hopefully our opponent doesn't burn us out, since we are at 4 life. Could very well be the case. Another unlicensed disintegration, but no artifact in play. And now the opponent's probably gonna get back the Scrounger. End of turn, so I don't think we can afford to attack with our Elemental here. keeping lands in hand in case we find a reunion. So we could be dead here. Alms of the Vein puts us to 1. And Fiery Temper is gonna close out the game. Alright, so could have done a few things differently, like killing the Falkenrath Aristocrat as soon as possible, not letting the opponent discard, killing the Aristocrat over the 4/4, but yeah, on to the next one. Alright, let's take a look at our opener. Only have 1 land here. Yeah, I don't think we can keep this one. Alright, this one has all the pieces, but only 2 lands. But Concoction and Lightning Axe should buy us a bit of time. Opponent with a turn 1 Inventor's Apprentice, so up against a quick start. And I think we just run out the turn 1 Concoction. And then turn 2 we can both sacrifice the enchantment and use Lightning Axe, discarding our 2 creatures. Another Apprentice. But no artifact to go with them yet. So I probably want to keep the removal spells for the artifacts. Can take a couple points if they're just 1/2s, but Radiant Flames is a pretty nice draw. So yeah, let's play Mountain and say go. Probably just gonna take the hit and then cast Radiant Flames. Hit us for 2. That's fine. And no third land for the opponent, alright. In that case, I think we just say go once again. We're not in a hurry, and if our opponent's missing land drops, we can afford to wait on Radiant Flames. Take 2, and still nothing. Alright, Jace is a nice one. So it's pretty likely their opponent has removal for Jace, given that they haven't played much here. I think we want to keep up Concoction, since that's always going to be in play. And their opponent knows about it, while Lightning Axe may come as a surprise. Still gonna run out to Jace, even though it's, yeah, just gonna die here. But had to give it a try. Opponent's still gonna hit us just for 2. Still just gonna take it here, I believe. And if they don't play anything... Alright, we did find a land. So at this point I think it's fine to Radiant Flames. And get, I think, another mountain. Opponent still doesn't know we're a Reanimator deck at this point. Bowman Courier, they just top decked. Has haste. It's gonna hit us for 1, that's fine. So if we find a land, we can't quite reanimate a creature since we never used the Concoction or the Lightning Axe, but we never were in a hurry. So I think just saying go here is fine, and the plan is to either use Lightning Axe or Concoction, discarding one of our creatures here. Alright, Weaponcraft Enthusiasts. It's gonna probably make 2 1/1s, that's fine. So that's with Fabricate 2. So here we're just going to use the Concoction right now. killing the courier, discarding, I think, Greenwarden. And now we're gonna Necromantic Summons the Greenwarden. Alright, this kind of makes me want to have discarded Omnath, but getting back the Greenwarden's still fine. Get back the summons. By not having used Lightning Axe, we don't get the 2+1/+1 counter, so that's the downside of not having used Lightning Axe. At this point, let's see. Yeah, I think it's okay to play the land here, since we can just discard a Crusher and then get that back next turn. Unlicensed Disintegration. Alright. So I guess we get back Radiant Flames. Could just keep the Greenwarden in the graveyard and get it back with the summons. But if our opponent's going wide, then I think this is fine. And I'm still gonna Lightning Axe here, discarding Plated Crusher, since we need to get that in the graveyard. And we still have a Radiant Flames to answer whatever opponent does. Alright, so play summons, get back Crusher, and Neonate is actually a nice pickup since it gives us some protection. Although I guess now that we got back the Radiant Flames, we no longer have Spell Mastery, so that's, I guess, a little awkward, but I think we still want the Radiant Flames to deal with our opponent potentially going wide with maybe Thopter tokens. Thopter Engineer is gonna sneak in a point of damage. Another Necromantic Summons is interesting, but I think we need to Radiant Flames in case our opponent has a burn spell they want to play. Otherwise we're getting a bit too low, especially given that Unlicensed Disintegration deals 3 damage. So I think the plan here is to attack, sacrifice Neonate, discarding Omnath, and then Radiant Flames for the full amount. And even if our opponent blocks with both creatures on the Crusher, still won't die to the Sweeper. Lightning Axe is a decent draw, I guess. So let's Flames for the full amount here. Say go. Don't have any Gaea's Revenge in the graveyard, but alright, Garrison from the opponent. Supports their plan of going wide. So we can summons and still keep up a Lightning Axe, discarding the Catacomb. Or we could summons and then get back Omnath and then play a land, which also sounds pretty appealing. Although, let's see, if our opponent has Unlicensed Disintegration, they don't have an artifact in play yet. If they go artifact plus Disintegration, they could kill one of the 2 elementals, but we could still then either block or shoot down the Garrison. So I think it's safe to summons the Omnath here. So let's attack first. And then play a land and make an elemental. And hope our opponent can't finish us off somehow. Ether Hub. Up to 2 energy now. Alright, we got there. So, a pretty weird game. Opponents missing a lot of land drops in the early game. We were also off to a pretty slow start. But managed to get there. So now we can play a land. I guess we can just attack with everyone here. And then kill our own elemental. To deal the final 3 points of damage. I wanna thank you for watching, I hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.